Hi, guys. My name is Andrew Banara, and this is On the Reel, a filmmaking podcast by BFS. As previously stated, I am super pumped for this.
Yeah, me too. I'm very, very pumped for this.
We're two filmmakers, and typically, with On the Reel, we're looking to talk to all types of people in the filmmaking industry. But this is very personal to me because you're a film director.
Nice.
Just want to start off with how did you start your journey?
I don't know. It's always weird because I never so growing up when I was younger, I was never like interested in like doing film, like filmmaking and stuff like that. I always wanted to be a video game like creator. And then I came to realize that there is a lot of different like roles with that. So it's not just one guy that makes a video game. It was like, okay, well, you can do all the coding, and then I wasn't necessarily interested in coding. And so what I ended up gravitating towards in that sense was like the storytelling aspect of it. I was like, okay, well, I could create the story of the video game. And so I had a friend of mine that I grew up with in my hometown. I've known him for like 16 years, who would make like these home videos on like an old like tape recorder, like camcorder, and he would like upload them to YouTube, and they were just like funny, silly, just stupid videos that he was doing. And I just remember one day he was like, hey, you want to be in one of these with me? I was like, yeah, sure, you know what, like, let's do it. And I just like, I don't remember how the conversation got started, but I was in middle school, I was in 6th grade, and we were just kind of like, hey, like, let's make like a movie, and like, let's write a script, let's, cast actors. And it was a zombie film because
I love that.
Super 8 had just come out from J.J. Abrams, and they are making a zombie film in that movie. And so that's kind of like where we got the inspiration and the idea to do it. So like we wrote a script, we had all these actors, and we were like, let's film it at the school. So I talked to the principal, we got permission, and like we came in on like a weekend to like shoot the film. So we shot like a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday. And it was like an 8-minute long film, and it is so bad. It was shot on so my dad shot the film, and it was shot on like a tablet, I swear to God, from wish.com. Like, it is so bad. There's like...
It's like 240p.
It is. Every scene is also just one shot, so it's just back and forth like this, and it was just... But I remember making that, and I remember thinking, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. And it's funny, too, the first day of shooting on that, like, side note, we had like maybe like 14 people attached to the film. So 14 6th grade age kids who will never do anything are like, all right, I'm going to show up and help film this. They show up on the first day of shooting, and the school is like locked. And so we called the principal, and she's like, oh, I thought you guys needed the next day. So then everybody left. We couldn't shoot. And then the next day, half of them showed up. So it's like we had to cut like half the characters, half the story. I mean, there wasn't really a story, but...
Yeah, the initial plan.
Yeah, the initial plan. And so from there, I just, like, it kind of just kept going up and up with, like, what I wanted to do. And for a while, I was really obsessed with making, like, fake trailers for movies I wasn't even going to do.
Nice.
So I would listen to music a lot. And a lot of music that I listened to is specifically music that would be in trailers. So there's no lyrics. It's just, like, beat drops and, like, risers and tension and stuff. And so... I would just get ideas for these trailers, and all of the fake trailers were always for zombie films. I was a huge Walking Dead fan. So like
that's so
yeah,
that's great.
I really was, and so I was a huge Walking Dead fan, and so every film I was making was a zombie film of some sort.
Nice.
And I would get my next door neighbor to help me shoot, and like I was always in it and also shooting, and then I edited it on the built-in Windows Movie Maker on mom's laptop, and just from there I was like always making these fake trailers, and then me and my friends started making like longer form of these like funny comedic videos. We wouldn't write a script. I would just come over to his house, and we would just shoot till like 1 or 2 a.m. Just me and him playing every character, no script. We shot it on a Galaxy S3 phone. And then it just got to a point where in my hometown, there was a film festival that was happening like across... Are you from Arizona?
No.
No, have you lived here a while?
I've lived here for like a year and a half.
Okay, so you probably don't know. There's my hometown is, I'm from Arizona, lived here my whole life, and it's called Bullhead City, Arizona.
Okay.
And it's really small. It's like 4 hours from here. It's like right across the Colorado River, and then across from it is this place called Laughlin, Nevada. And it's like an hour maybe from like Vegas. So in Laughlin, Nevada, across the river, there was a film festival that they had every year, and my dad just took me there one year. He was like, you and my friend's name is Quincy. She's like, hey, you and Quincy want to go? Like, I'll take you guys there. We'll go see the opening night film, and then we'll do like a young filmmakers workshop that was there or something. And so we went there. I did the workshop. I saw the opening night film, and I don't know what it was about like that festival specifically or that workshop specifically, but something just like clicked in my head. I was like, I'm gonna make a film to submit to this festival. And when I say make a film to submit to this festival, my understanding was that I was just gonna write this really small thing and I was gonna submit it, wasn't gonna get in, whatever. I was just gonna do it. I was gonna, write an actual script because I was always using Word doc or Google Docs or something, but I was like, I'm going to use cell text. I'm going to format it correctly. I'm going to cast actors, whatever.
Shout out to cell text.
I know.
That's crazy.
I used cell text for a while. I switched to fade in. Like, I used the free version of fade in, and I just, like, removed the watermark. And, like, with the script, I should buy Final Draft. I should just invest and buy it. But I wrote it in cell text, and it was originally an 18-page script, and I was like, nah, I can add more to this. I made it in 92 pages, and I shot an hour and a half long, like, feature film as like my first like movie.
That's incredible.
And I didn't realize kind of like what I was doing at the time because I was like, oh, I'm just like filming a movie. But I didn't know like, oh no, we're filming like it's 90 pages, it's an hour and a half long. There's all these characters, and to be fair, every character in that film was played by my family. It's like my dad played the villain, my mom was my mom, I played the main character, and like the other like supporting. So the film is called Genome. And it's about, like, the Human Genome Project, and it's about cloning. So I clone myself in the film, and, like, there's these secret agent aspects to it where there's, like, this agency after the cloning device, and then they get my clone and turn him evil, and it's this whole thing, and we made it.
How old were you when you made this?
I think I was a sophomore in high school, is, like, when I did it.
That's crazy.
And it's not good. It's real bad. It is so, and it's funny because it became, like, a joke in my family to, like, watch it every year, just being like, my mom, I love her, love my dad, but they are just not good actors. And even me back then is like, it's not good. And it's like, my brother shot it on like a Nikon DSLR, but it was just like
an upgrade.
Yeah, a bit of an upgrade from the tablet. And we shot it over Christmas break. So it was shot over like a month where it was just like a weekend here, weekend there, because like I had school and my parents were working. And so we kind of fit it in where we could. But
that's incredible.
It got into the festival. And so I was like, all right, sweet, we got a theater premiere, whatever. And then like they played it. I think it's so funny when you get films into a festival and they pick the day that they show it, because it's like, to me, it's like they play a lot of the films that they really like towards the beginning of the festival because that's when everyone's going to be there and they want people to see it. They played my film was the last showing on the last day at the last time. I think it was so funny because I was like, no one's going to go to this. Like, I'll have maybe a few people from my hometown, but like the theater was full. Like people from the festival and then people around town like came and saw it. There were people sleeping in the audience like 20 minutes in, I'm not gonna lie. And
it's still amazing.
I know, and it was so like that moment was so surreal to me to like see the film playing on the big screen and the entire audience full because they call you up to the front of the theater and they ask you questions and things like that. And just like I remember I was standing outside of the theater like greeting people as they came in, and my dad came out and he was like, hey, like, just gonna warn you, there's a lot of people in there. Cause like I wasn't really paying attention, like who's coming in, I'm nervous, I'm like freaking out, I'm like, people's gonna like this movie, it's really bad, whatever. And like I walk in and I turn the corner and I see all of these people. And like, I just thought that was so crazy to me that it was full. And like, I just made this random thing.
Yeah, you're like what, 15?
Yeah, and I just like randomly decided to do it, had my family in it, and like, so we film it, like, they show it, and I just remember, so in that film, there like some things, but so, I'm going to spoil it. It's Game with the Fred.
This now you've hit it.
So, my mom's character in the film dies.
Okay.
My clone, like, kills her. And I remember I was just like, I want this to be sad. I was like, if I get anything out of this film, I just want people to be sad about this. And there were people, like, crying. And people came to me at the end, and they were like, you got me with that your mom dying. Like, that was really, like, good and sad. And I just remember when people came to me and told me that, seeing the connection that they had with this random thing that I had just made, I feel like that was, like, the moment that I knew that I wanted to, like, do this, like, seriously.
That's incredible.
Like, take it seriously. And
That's
it
amazing.
sounds kind of like fucked up because it's like my mom dying.
That's what my mom made me really.
That's what my mom made me realize how I wanted to be a filmmaker. But I don't know what it was about just seeing people connect to it and just seeing people's like reactions. Like on YouTube, all I watch are reaction videos, trailer reactions, TV show reactions, movie reactions. I don't know what it is, but I think reactions to just anything, not even my own stuff, but like even if it is my film, but then seeing, you know, the actors that I have in it on how people react to them, or like how people react to, you know, how Casey shot a shot in the film. They're like, well, that's crazy. I feel like it's the reactions that people have that make me do what I like, want to do what I do.
That's amazing.
And so after that, I just kind of was like, after that film, I was like, I need to do another one. Like I do, and I was like, I need to do another film. And I did another feature. Me and Quincy, my friend, were like, let's do a feature film. And so we wrote a feature film version of one of the really small, like funny, shitty videos that we did on YouTube. We made a feature film version of it. It had like 24 of our friends in it. We shot it over the summer, like before our senior year. And then we did like our own premiere. And again, it was an hour and a half long film, and it's hilarious.
Still on Windows?
No, we actually upgraded to Premiere at that point. But I torrented it because you know that's what you got to do when you're in high school. And so yeah, we had a film, like we sold tickets, and there was like probably 100 people there, and like they watched it.
That's amazing.
But it was like we premiered at our local library, so the screen is probably as big as that screen, and there's like 100 people trying to watch it and stuff. And then after that, we were like, all right, let's do another one. So we did another feature, and it was a horror film, and that one was probably the most difficult one that we had done because we shot it after we graduated senior year. And like we had done like smaller short films in between like these bigger projects, but it was just something about doing features. I think it was, we were learning the most because we were spending the most amount of time on a project. And, you know, like we're like myself, I am like self-taught with everything. I didn't go to film school. So after like senior year, like my parents were like, are you going to college or are you not going to college? And it was like a big like decision, a big thing I was thinking about on, am I going to film school or not? And we had just been making these films, and I just learned so much making these features that I was like, if I just keep making these films, I can eventually just learn what I need.
Learn by doing,
But the thing that I knew was going to be missing was like the connections and like the networking and meeting people and working on other sets. And so I ultimately decided not to go. So I didn't go to film school. I stayed in my hometown. And like I worked 2 jobs, I moved out, lived on my own, and so I felt like I got a lot of value out of that. And so like I didn't go to film school, and then COVID happened, and Quincy had gone to film school, and he went to ASU, and he met a bunch of people. COVID happened, he came back, and he like next year he decided not to go again, and we like made another film. And I remember in the like 2020, towards like the end of it, I had made a short film called Days Gone By. And for the longest time, I hadn't made anything like zombie or apocalypse wise before those fake trailers. So it was a huge gap. And like, I'm a huge zombie fan. I'm a huge apocalypse fan. And I wanted to do like a good, like apocalypse film. So I wrote this short film. It was like 30 pages. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and take the work that we put into these features and put it into a short film and see what we can do. So I casted my sister in it, and like she was really good. And the film was about like a brother and a sister, and it basically goes across like a year, like in this apocalypse. So like the opening of the film is like day 1, and then it cuts like the next scene is like day 365. So it's like, oh shit, like all of this has gone on. And it's basically about them trying to get to their grandma's house because it might be the only family they have left. And it's this whole thing. And a lot of it's in the woods because, you know, we live in Bullhead's close to like a wooded area in Arizona up on like a mountain. And I made that. And like for the longest time, that was like my bet. Me personally, I felt like it was my best work, story-wise, character-wise. And like I say when I made that feature, like that's when I really wanted to start taking it seriously. But I think that's when I was like, okay, I like doing this. But when I made Days Gone By, that's when I was like, okay, like, I want this as my career. Like, this is like doing this film and seeing the reaction that film had, where people were like, because people told me that it felt like such a jump from like what I had been making before to that. They were like, holy shit. Like, and again, people are crying, like, dude, this is really good. And they were like, you need to make more stuff like this. And then, you know, I feel like since that film, I really started to focus on because like I never really focused on like story or character wise or you know like mainly story
concept heavy.
Yeah. And I had never done that before Days Gone By. I was really more into like camera and like, you know, are we shooting at the right shutter speed? Do we have the right lighting? Like, does it look good? But with that film, I really took my time to write it and try and flesh out the characters as best as that I could. And then since then, like that's really been my focus. And I think doing that film is what solidified me wanting to do like directing. Because I like acted in like everything before that film. So that was like the first film. I mean, even in that film, I had a smaller role. But I feel like after that film, I was like, all right, I'm not, like I'll act, I like acting, but directing is like really where I wanted to be at, like because of that film. And ever since then, like I've really tried to like up my skills and my storytelling and my concepts as much as I can. Because like I basically set that film as like the bar when I made it. And then as long as like I hit higher than that bar every time now, then I feel like I'm, you know, advancing or getting better.
That's incredible.
Things like that. Yeah. So and I just, yeah, I mean, since then, it's just directing's been kind of what I've honed in on, just because I creating concepts and creating stories to tell and getting people to work on them is just I just love doing it. And it's like I like doing it for the reactions of seeing people's reactions in the theater. I like doing it so that way people can like connect and like kind of escape for a little bit. And I just like creating these worlds that, you know, aren't like this world. So it's like, you know, like an apocalypse. It's like I really like putting characters in situations that, you know, they wouldn't normally be in. And so it's just like I love telling stories. And then when I think back to like, you know, originally wanted to do video games, like creating stories of video games. And even when I was younger than that, I was also a huge Star Wars fan, and there's a lot of was when it comes to things I used to like, just because of choices that have been made. Yeah.
Oh fuck, that is amazing.
Yeah, I grew up on the Star Wars: The Clone Wars animated show, like on Cartoon Network, and I had a lot of Star Wars action figures, and I would just create battles in my room and tell stories with this battle. So it's like when I think about it, for the longest time, like I've always been just telling stories. Yeah. So I really feel like that's where it comes down to, and why I like directing is just creating these stories to not only have people be a part of, but to have people like experience.
Pretty crazy how similar both of us are. Mm-hmm. First movie, also a zombie movie.
Yep.
Used to play with my toys and make my own stories.
Yep.
And something that I saw that you do is that you're very consistent. You know, like back in the day, they had philosophy houses, right? Like you would subscribe to a philosophy, and then you'd learn that philosophy.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, filmmaking has become kind of like that, but there's no real place you go to. Rather, you make the films, and your style of filmmaking kind of dictates your philosophy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you're what I would describe as the storyteller, because you have these technical filmmakers who are very strict about how they make their films, and they don't just want to make them like any films. They want to be very particular about you know, how they approach something, and they're very scarce about what they make. But it feels like you just kind of want to film, and you want to continue to film. And that's exactly how I am. Like I could just film something and, you know, not get too attached to it. Obviously do your best, but you know, it's like, okay, cool, we did that. Now let's move on to the next thing. And how can we make that bigger, and yada, yada. So let's dive deep into what you would consider like your filmmaking philosophy. Like what's something that you like to do when you tell your stories?
It kind of varies too, like with the stories that I like to tell. And hearing you say it kind of makes sense to me, where it's like, you know, I really do just like to film, you know, so like I'll come up with a concept, and I won't be like too married to I use that term a lot on my sets too. Like I'm not too married to these things that I do, unless it's like something that I'm like really, really like passionate about. Like the Days Gone By thing, I was really passionate about that. So I really like honed in on that. I wasn't making anything else. I really focused on doing that. And then once that was done, I really tried to like take it places. Every film that I make is to me like practice. So it's like, you know, I really try and like hone in on like the storytelling first. I really like to make sure that, okay, are these characters relatable? You know, can people connect with these characters? Do these characters make sense? Do they seem like real people? And if I get to that point, I'm like, okay, you know, let's just do this. But then I also really try not to like focus too much on certain aspects a lot, because to me, it's like, I really just want to film it and get it out there and then, you know, move on. Unless it's something that's like I said, like I'm really passionate about it, like really want to do. And so I felt like for this last year, 2024 and specifically, really felt like the year that I was like, okay, these projects that I make this year, I'm going to kind of really try and hone in on them, make them as best as I possibly can, and then just like move on to the next thing. And like my philosophy was really trying to build like a team. So this last year was the first year I ever worked with Casey. And so like working with Casey and working with him, now I'm like, okay, I want to work with this guy for the rest of time, like as long as I can. And so I really wanted to build like a team up and like, you know, have a good camera team, a good art team, good actors, working with John and a lot of the actors that I work with. So it's like a lot of these films that I made, you know, I tried to hone in on my storytelling and then, you know, try and build this team at the same time. So that way this next year, these films that I make this year, I can use that same team and just kind of advance like basically what I was doing. Yeah. But like I don't want to streamline it in a sense of like they feel cookie cutter. I want to streamline it in a sense of like we can make good films but like not fast but like efficient. Yeah, and so with this philosophy of filmmaking that I have is that I just like to make movies. But I know that I want it to be something that I do like as a career and as like a job and, you know, be able to support myself on it. And so I just want to start making movies that people see that and people are like, he's serious about that. Because for the longest time, people are like, you know, you making that video again? And I don't know what it is about when people say that. It drives me nuts.
Oh my God. I love that you say that because I'm on that same boat.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're doing this again? It's like, dude, you know?
Yeah.
There's this great quote, not a quote, but there's this video that I saw about this really famous soccer player. And the soccer player was on live television. It was like national television. And the host, the news anchor, she was like, "Oh, you know, what if you couldn't do soccer? What would you do?" Or she said, "If you couldn't play professional soccer, what would you do?" And he said, "I would play soccer." And she said, "Oh, but you wouldn't be making as much money as you are now." And she kind of made a joke about it.
Yeah.
And he said, "I don't care. I would still be playing soccer." And I think that to me it resonated so much because I've had people tell me like, "Oh, you're making the same." You know, because I'm 30. I don't know how old you are.
20. I'm about to be 24.
Okay, so yeah, I've been doing this since I was like a kid too. Like I started when I was again 13, 14.
Yeah.
Like my first camera, and so I've been doing this for a little over a decade. Professional like you, like pursuing it. I've been doing it for about a decade, and so. You know, it's like there's no real roadmap. There's no answers to how you get to somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've had that where I have this series called Silent Sounds. It's a horror film series. And back in Texas, that's what we were known for. We were known for the horror films.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like I remember there's this one guy, and this is not talking shit or anything, but just he said the same thing. He was like, "Oh, you're doing Silent Sounds again," and I was like, "Well, yes." It's like I would prefer to do Silent Sounds every year if I could. Because it's like every year is getting better and every year it's meaning something. And just like that philosophy of like, yeah, I'm playing soccer.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's on a professional level or if it's at a city league level. If soccer is my passion, I'm going to be playing soccer. And that's the same with filmmaking. It's like filmmaking and storytelling is my passion. I want to do filmmaking if it's on the big scale or the small scale, regardless.
Yeah, and I think I've talked to people about that before where it's like, because I work in a very corporate job right now. I still do, so like, I do a lot of editing and a lot of like videography for like work and like paying the bills, and that's what I do. And I've been doing that for like maybe 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. And like to me, I don't see it as work because like it's really easy for me. Like, you know, I can edit really quickly. I can shoot really quickly. Like it's just, I don't really see it as work because I still enjoy doing it, but it's like at the corporate level, it's just not what I want to be doing. And it's just like I love my job, and everyone from my job is seeing this. I love my job. But I just need to make that very clear.
I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. Looks at camera.
But it's just like, I will always do filmmaking no matter what. Like if I'm 90 and I have never made it, you know, whatever that's defined as, I will still be making films. I'll be on a walker directing, you know, Clint Eastwood's, isn't Clint Eastwood like 90?
Dude, Clint Eastwood's almost 100.
Yeah, and he made Juror number 2, and like, you know, he's still making films. So it's like, I will always be making films just because it's like telling these stories and working with people. And I love just being able to create an environment, like I said, building a team that people can come work on the team and do their best work and show their best work. And I always tell people, like, when I'm making a film, I want you to come on this film as if this is gonna be the best thing that you're making.
Yeah.
Just because I want you to feel, I want them to feel satisfied in the work that they do, helping me make my work. And then, it's always like, I always go to people and I'm like, do you want to do something else? Like, I'll ask first ACs. I'm like, do you want to be director of photography? Like, do you want to be the first AD? Like, tell me, because I always feel bad too if I reach out to somebody for a first or second AC, for example, and I'm like, hey, I need you as a first or second AC, and they're like, yeah, I'm there, and I'm like, yeah, but do you want to do anything else? Like, I'm open to people stepping up and doing other things and helping out, and then same with actors. When I work with actors, when I try and direct them, I tell them, I'm like, this is what's written on the script, but if you don't want to do this, do whatever you want. Like, if you have a line that you think doesn't work or you want to do something else, do it. I'll do anything. So I'm like, let's just do it. And so, because I believe, as directors, I feel like we lay a blueprint. Mm-hmm. We come up with a blueprint of the story, and we obviously have a vision, but I feel like we're choosing specific people to work with because they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
So for an actor, for example. So
you're preaching to the choir.
So if we get an actor on set, I'm like, I know you're good at what you do.
Yeah.
I don't need to come to you and be like, hey, this isn't working.
Yeah, I chose you specifically for
this. And so it's like, if you think that there's a better route that, because then also they may know the characters sometimes better than I do, because it's if they read into it, if they really connect to it.
And they do their homework.
Yeah, they do their homework. They research this character. They build this character up in their mind. And then they come to me and they're like, hey, I think they would do this. I'm like, sweet, let's do it. Roll with it. And 90% of the time, it is always better.
Yeah, allowing your actors to kind of play in it.
Yeah.
Working with your actors. Let's dive deep into that, because I feel like, we had a brief conversation before starting, and I told you about that experience that I had with my friend who made a kid cry on set. Not because he yipped that, but emotionally the kid cried because the story required it. And I had asked him, and just for the viewers that are listening, he made this kid cry on in the film. And it was beautiful. And I said, how did you do that? And he told me his process. What's your process working with your actors? How do you work with your actors, and what are techniques that you use to either build rapport or get a performance?
Yeah. So usually when I work with actors, I don't do a lot of auditions. Okay. So I usually like to see work from other people and see. I'll see a lot of work for John, for example. I saw him in something, I reached out to him, and then I saw the work that he did. I'm like, I want you to play this role. And usually when I write specifically for actors that I know, just because I know they can do it and I know I want them on the project. So this next film that I'm shooting at the end of February, I wrote a role specifically for John. And I reached out to him, and I wrote it for him before even reaching out to him. And I was like, hey, you want to do this role? And he's like, yeah, I'm down. I'm like, oh, thank God.
So I don't know what I was going to do after that.
But so I did the last feature so I did a feature in 2023, which was the last feature that I'd done. And I did a lot of auditions for those actors, just because there was a lot of characters. And because of the story of the film, I ended up playing the lead because my cat was in the film and I needed scenes with my cat, and he would have gotten along with me well. But anyways, for all the other actors, when I did auditions for them, I auditioned them for 2 roles. I auditioned them for the lead, and then I auditioned them for extra stuff. And I really paid attention to how they make the character their own. And the actors that I chose, I'm so grateful that I chose these people, because most of those actors on that film I never worked with, ever. And so there was a character that was my character's best friend. The character's name is Luke, and he's played by my good friend Tim. And I'd never worked with Tim before. First day on set, Tim comes and I'm working with him, and I'm just explaining to him the relationship that these two characters have, their friendship, how long they've known each other. And that's all that I really give him. I give him a background of the character kind of in my mind, and kind of their relationship and what they are. I don't really give him any mannerisms. I don't really give him any he says things like this, or he acts like this with his body language and stuff. I just kind of really want to see what they bring to the table, because I really like working with people to flesh out the best in them and what they can bring. And so having him on set the first day that we're shooting, he brings this character to life. And to be honest with you, when I wrote that character, I didn't write it for anyone specifically. I just created the character in my head, and I was like, all right, whoever I give this to, I'm just going to see what they do. And he took that character and made it 100 times better than I ever could possibly imagine. And I gave him little direction here and there in terms of like a lot of like blocking is really a lot of like directing that I do because like I'm an editor. So usually when I direct for the edit because most of the time I'll edit the film as well. So I kind of know how I want them to like move across the scene or how I want them to play the camera and stuff. And so that's a lot of the directing that I do. In terms of like character and stuff, I really like just rely on the actors to, you know,
flush them out
themselves. And like I said, 90% of the time they really, really do. And so like but if something's not really working, like I'll go to them and I'll kind of like, I do a lot of like number percentages. I'm like, hey, if you're giving me 40%, like let's give me 70. Like let's see what we can do with 70. And then like sometimes I'll give them like words. Like I'll be like, okay, you know, ecstatic. Like if there's, you know, if I need them to be excited, but they're not really bringing it out, I'm like, you are ecstatic about what is happening right now. You need to like live it up. And then most of the time they'll just deliver. They'll do it. And then like, with John, for example, I worked with him on a film, Dean and Dan, recently, where he played like a mob boss, and he like was smoking a cigar, and he walks in, and he's wearing this suit. But that film was a comedy, but how I wrote his character specifically is that he is supposed to come across as not comedic at all, but because he is coming across not comedic in the comedy film, it's comedic. Because these two other guys are not serious at all, and this guy comes in acting like this serious
musician.
Yeah, acting like this serious mob boss. And I told him, I was like, your character thinks whenever he walks into a room, he is the most serious person that there is, and because of that, he is the laughing stock of it all the time. But he's the laughing stock to the audience, and he was like, okay, I get it. And like, so when he would deliver lines, I'm like, I need you to deliver this in the most serious possible way that you can, to where it's almost like comedic. And he did it, and like he delivered it, and he was great, and like I said, I really like working with actors that like to flesh out the characters themselves. And I'm working with, you know, an actress, and she's playing the lead in the next film that I'm doing. And she texted me, she's like, I'm really excited for this. I've been doing homework on this, and this, and all this. I'm like, great. Because I know when I get to set, I'm going to be like, this is what I thought. What do you think? And she's going to tell me, like, great, like, let's do it. And so, like I said, I really like working with people, actors specifically, that flesh out the characters themselves, because they, in my mind, they're playing this role for a reason. They want to play this role because either they connected with my writing or they've just always wanted to play a role like this. And so they're going to bring the best that they possibly can.
That's interesting. The connection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They connected with it. That's really cool.
And I worked with Anthony Quintana on my last feature, and he had auditioned for the best friend of the lead and also the lead. And when I was I'd never worked with him before. And like, he read for the character, and I had this character in the film named Duke, who is the boyfriend of the main character's sister. And the scene that he is introduced in is he's holding a gallon of milk that has his name written on the side as Duke, and he's just slamming this milk.
Nice.
And I reached out to him, and I was like, you know, I loved your audition. And in my mind, I was like, I really want you to play this character. Like, I really want, like, if you want, I want you to, like, make this character yours. He's like, absolutely, I'm in. And I gave him no direction. He just came in and he knew exactly what to do with this character. Even though he had like auditioned for these two over here, he saw this character, he wanted to do this character, and he made that character his. And he is like one of the best parts in that film. Every time people watch that film, they laugh. Every time he shows up and he's just slamming this milk, and there's a scene where he's like, I'll see you later, bro. And he like hits my chest, and like the way he like hits it too is like, it's so good because he like took that character and like made it his own. So I didn't really have to like really give him any of it.
Sometimes it's like the best way to approach an actor is just, you know, letting them have their first take.
Yeah.
And sometimes their initial, you know, interpretation is probably the best.
Yeah.
I've had situations where, you know, like specifically with John, since, you know, that's a common thread of both of us. I remember when we were doing Let It Go, and he wanted to play it a very specific way. And I personally at the time, and I'm sure he probably remembers this conversation I had with him or not, I said, well, why are you acting like the way you're acting? And for me, I'm very question-based. And so he was just like, well, you know, like for me, as long as you have a justification for
why you're doing it,
you're doing it, I'm very like, okay, I trust you. You know?
Yeah.
Because you, like you said, you get these actors specifically because you trust them. So I was talking to him, and I said, well, you know, like the context of the scene, the friend lost his girlfriend in a car crash, and he's acting a certain way. He's kind of like playing it off. And I told him, why are you doing that? Like, why aren't you being there for him more often? And so, he dived deep, and he gave me a really good explanation where I was like, okay, cool. Like, you justified it.
Yeah.
Whether or not I agreed with it, which at the time I came to agree with it. But it's one of those things where it's like, you also have to, like you said, you also have to give your actors credit, because they also want to give you a good performance. They're also in it with you. So it's like, it's a partnership. It was a collaboration.
Yeah. And on that feature that I did with Anthony and with my friend Tim, there was another character in the film that was like kind of like, so there's like the core four in the film is like my character, the girl that he meets, and then Tim's character, and then like there was another girl that was like another best friend type of character. And the actress that played her name is Kate, and I never worked with Kate before again. She auditioned, and I really liked her audition. But when I wrote the script, her character Emily had like no lines in the film. There was like 6 lines. And she gave this audition, and she read for that character, but then also read for the lead. And I had, not the lead, like the supporting lead, the other girlfriend. And I had already casted that other girl character, and I really wanted her in the film. And she just gave such a performance that I was like, I need to rework this script completely to give you more. So I did. I rewrote the entire script just specifically to give her character more. And even then, it's still like, I gave her more, but it just wasn't as much as everybody else. But then when she came to set, she just, again, made this character her own, and she's just doing things in scenes like that just weren't in the script, and I loved. And it's just like the way that she's acting and stuff. And I'm also question based too. Sometimes is like I came to her and I'm like, so why do you think that Emily's character is like this? And she was like, well, she's friends with these 2 guys. And these are her best friends. So how do you think that's going to affect her as like a character? I was like, you know what? I didn't think about that. And you're right. And I was like, that is absolutely correct. And so she's like, not like she's like one of the guys, but it's just like, she's obviously going to act this way because she's friends with these 2 guys based off of these 2 guys' character. And she's also going to be like the voice of reason with these 2 guys because they're best friends that have known each other a long time. And in the story, she's like the newest, like to their group. Yeah. So it's like, but still hanging out with them is going to affect her in this way. And she explained that to me. And I was like, you know what? Writing that, I never saw that and never thought about that. And that is great. So like for the rest of the film, that's just kind of like how she was. And then specifically with Tim's character, because the both of them shared a lot of scenes together, they kind of built this chemistry together that I didn't even set up. They just, off screen and on screen, they just built this chemistry. When they were in scenes together, they would do mannerisms or like joke around with each other. And really even their ad-libbing, when they were supposed to be ad-libbing, was in character. Like, because sometimes actors are like pineapple, pineapple, pineapple. And like, they were having a genuine conversation in character. And I'd come over to them like, what are you guys talking about? And they're like, well, Tim's character is Luke. They're like, well, Luke and Emily like probably went and did this together. And they're talking about this time. And I'm like, the hell, that's great. I didn't even come up with that. So yeah, like just letting them work with these characters, and just that film just became 100 times what I thought it would be, just specifically because of these characters. And then even with the second lead in the film, Olivia, who's played by my girlfriend now, but not at the time, Tanis, she came in, and I wrote that character specifically for her because I'd worked with her on something else, and I saw her in some things. And so I wrote that character specifically for her. Reached out to her, she read it, and she's like, I love this character, and I relate to this character so much, I want to do it. And again, she just made that character her own. And when we were shooting, again, just like stage direction, or like turn this way, or you need to move this way, and I just let them build this character. And then, again, we had to shoot a scene that takes place in her character's house, and she has a room. And I went to her, and I was like, decorate this room however you want. I was like, these are what we got. These are the props. Put them wherever you want, where you think she would do it, and that's what we'll do. And so she did it. She set up the room how she wanted, the lights, like string lights, these Polaroids, these photos. And then she like in the film, I had a certain scene where a character's wearing headphones and she's like meditating. And her mom comes in and interrupts her meditating, and the mom's like, what are you doing? And then she's like, manifesting. And in my mind, I was like, I just wrote that scene. I didn't know how I wanted it to play out, whatever. And in my mind, headphones are like AirPods, because like that's what we had nowadays. But she came to set with like a Turtle Beach gaming headset. And I don't know what it was. I was just like, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
I was like, that is so unique.
That
and that
adds an element.
It adds an element to it because it's not like, not that earpods are basic, but it's like, that would just be the basic thing that you would think about. Yeah. But she was like, has this headset on, and her mom comes in and interrupts, and like she pulls it off. And then I just remember the way that she delivered the manifesting line. I was just like, in my mind, I knew that she had taken this character, made her own, and I was just like, this is great. I was like, I love this.
Something as small as that also just elevates the character so much.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then like even with like the mom character in that film, do you know who Shannon Spiegel is? Mm-hmm. So she, acts out here in Arizona, and I had seen her in something, and I never worked with her before, and reached out to her, and I was like, I have this mom character I want you to play, and she was like, absolutely, I'm in. She came to set. And she had worked with Tanis before, but I don't remember if they had really acted together, but they created this mother-daughter dynamic in the blink of an eye that I didn't even set up. I was like, this is the scene. You're coming in this way. These are the lines. I want to see what you, and that. So kind of in a broader sense, whenever I go to shoot a scene, I tell the actors, I'm like, let's shoot it. I want to see what you guys do. I want to see, like, this is the movements. These are the lines. I'm not married to them. I want to see what you guys bring. If I like what they bring, I'm like, okay, like, let's adjust this just maybe a little bit, or maybe like come at it this way. And, then I just let them go. And they created this dynamic that is awesome. And I just remember watching it. I was sitting behind the camera, seeing that scene, and I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. Like, this dynamic in the blink of an eye, they were comfortable. They had this chemistry instantly. Like, I would believe that they are a mother and a daughter. Yeah. And I swear people at the premiere were like, is that her mom? And I'm like, nope. And like, that's how you know. That's how you know. Yeah. Is with the audience. And then recently, bringing up John again, I had been asked to direct a film that I didn't write. And they were like, we need you to direct this. This is the story. These are the actors, And I was like, sweet. I'll help you guys do it. I'll come on the set. I'll bring my own, vision to it. And so I get on set. I'm working with John. And there's a scene where his character gets handcuffed by like, I actually don't know if I'm allowed to say this. I'll be as vague as possible. He gets handcuffed, and it's by like a friend of his. And before that, they're having a really deep conversation. And I told them, I was like, in case you shot it, I'm like, I need close-ups on their faces. Like, I need to be in their characters in this moment, emotionally involved in what's happening, that he doesn't notice that he gets handcuffed. And I remember I told John, I was like, all you hear is the noise. Mm-hmm. Don't look at it right away, because now what has happened. And I want a deer in headlights. I need that slow look down in this moment of realization that, oh my God, my friend has just betrayed me in this moment. When I've known this friend a long time, I didn't think they would do this. That's what I need from you. And he's like, got it. And he had told me before, he was like, yeah, that's what I was thinking. And I just knew that when he agreed and he was like, that's what I was thinking too, I was like, sweet. He has built this character up the way that I've built this character up. So it's like, that's why he's on this set. That's why I'm working with him, is because of that right there. And he did it. We did it one time. And he did it. He looked at it. He did the perfect look, exactly what I wanted. I was like, great, let's move on. Like, that's exactly what
we don't need to replicate
that. Don't even need to replicate it.
Okay, so something I want to ask you, what's a little bit more personal, is how do you deal with like creative fatigue?
It's a great question, because for the longest time, like before I moved, so I moved out here maybe like 4 years ago, like to Tempe, Phoenix specifically. And before that, when I was writing, it would take me forever to come up with ideas. We would make a film, like the features that we made during high school, we would make them, and it would take me like 6 to 9 months to like finish a script and to write it. And to finish a script that's not even good, like to my level now, but it's just like, it would take me so long, because I was like, people love the last thing that we did. I don't want to disappoint people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't want to make something that is going backwards.
Yeah, yeah.
And it took me so long. And like, I still kind of have that, but it just like, this last year, specifically 2024, is the year that I made the most projects. And I don't know what happened, but I was just able to just write. And I was like, I would write it. I'd go through a couple drafts. I'm like, let's do it. Like, I just need to film it and get it done. Because if I don't start it, it's just not going to happen for a long time. So I kind of like, there'd be like this mental wall that I would have where like, I'd always ask myself, how am I getting over this wall? Like, what is this step? What is like the jump that I'm doing? And I kind of came to terms of like, I just need to just get over it. Like, I need to trick myself into like getting over it so I don't realize that I'm over this wall of creative fatigue, of writer's block, of not thinking this project is going to be good enough. and then just make it. So by the time I make it, it's like, okay, that's way past. I don't have to worry about it. Because it's like the writing portion is always where I get the creative fatigue and the doubt and the worry. That's always the point in which it happens for me. And then we'll do production. I'll be so anxious and like stressed about production that I won't have time to think about worrying other people of like, oh, this film's not good, or like what other people are going to think. I'm just so in it that when we get out of it and we get in the editing part, that's when it kind of like comes back like a little bit. But then when I see what we made, I'm like, okay, I love what we made. I'm a little more confident in it. But it's like, it's always the writing process of like, you know, is this too similar to what I've done before? Is this too similar to something that's out right now? Is it too similar to something that's coming out right now? Or are people, you know, not really going to like it? And it's just like, comparison is always like what gets me, also with comparison with myself, because I always, like going back to philosophy, I always want the next thing that I make to be better than what I made last. For me personally, whether I think we shot it better, whether I think I directed it better, I just need one element of it that I do better to know that I'm improving.
Yeah.
So I'm not, because I hate staying stagnant. Like in life, in jobs, in film, in anything. Like I'll be working a job and it'll be stagnant. I'm like, all right, like let's move on. Like let's do another. Let's apply for other jobs and get another job. And so it's like, you know, and working with corporate, that's like something that can happen a lot.
Yeah,
where it's like,
fatigue.
Yeah. So like with creative fatigue, it's just, you know, I really had to learn how to mentally trick myself to get over that hurdle and just write it, get it done, and go. And
I think what that is it's just your consistency is so high, dude. You have such high consistency with everything you've done, where you understand that you don't, like, you just need to do, like, you convince yourself to go through it, and then you get through it, and then you allow yourself to kind of trick your brain. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, and I feel like before last year, I had been working closely with a lot of people that I would bring them an idea, and I don't know what it is. I just, not to like toot my own horn or like, you know, but I cannot think small. I don't know what it is, but every idea that I try and do is always like massive. Like after I finished the last feature that I did in 2023, my next feature I wanted to do a horror feature. I wanted to do a survive the night, cabin in the woods style, group of teenagers, you know, killers, whatever. And I was like, at the end of the film, I want this house burning down. I was like, I want a house on fire. And I remember telling myself, I was like, I could do it. I literally spent 2 days looking up special effects on how to set up a fire being set on fire. And Tannis, my girlfriend, she does VFX. She went to school for VFX. So I asked her, like, how easy is this to do? And she was like, well, it's not easy, but I can do it. And I was like, sweet, we're doing it. So when I started writing it, I always had that in my mind. I was like, we're gonna have a house on fire. We're gonna have a house on fire. And like I would tell people, specific people, I'm like, I want to do this house on fire. And I remember some people would just be like, why? They'd be like, why? But in a negative way. They would say like, they were like, that's too big. We can't do that. And it was always that phrase of we can't do that, that I finally realized was the reason why I wouldn't go through with certain projects, or why I would try and shoot a little bit below the bar. But now, and I feel like with all of 2024, I was like, fuck that bar, let's just do it. And if it's not working, we'll work with what we got. And so, like I said, I made the most projects I possibly could because I just didn't listen to people that would say, we can't do that. And even now, so that film that we were going to do, that horror film, I kind of put on pause because I, you know, kind of took the mentality of like, all right, I made that feature. That was the most expensive film I'd ever made. And it didn't really go anywhere. It got into no festivals.
Yeah, I hate that.
And I feel like, you know, I shot for the stars with that film, and I'm so glad that I did because I made it. But then I was like, all right, I'm going to take that mentality of features and I'm going to now put it into short films. So I'm going to make short films to the level that I would make features with the budget that I would make a feature with, but in like a 30-minute or less kind of short film style, and see what I can do. And I think this last year in 2024, I made the best stuff I've made because of that.
That's hilarious, dude. Like, you've had the opposite of what filmmakers usually go through.
Yeah, and people say that all the time. They're like, well, you've made 4 features? And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, they're not good. And then they're like, oh, I haven't made a feature yet. And I'm like, oh. Do you like, I never really know what to say. Because, and then like now I'm like taking an idea and putting in short films. I'm so glad that I'm doing that because this next short film that I'm doing will now be the most expensive film that I've done because I'm taking that mindset of like, okay, I want to take the budget and the manpower that I would put into a feature and put it into a 18-page script, because then I want to have like the quality of a feature, but in a short film. Yeah. Because then I also figured out the mindset of like, you know, with that feature not getting into a lot of festivals, like it really bummed me out. Like, and going back to creative fatigue, after that happened, I was like, damn, like we worked so hard to do this and it didn't get anywhere. And like, I don't know, you know, because you know what film festivals are, they never tell you. They're always just like, sorry, we can't do it. Yeah. I'm like, great, thanks for the feedback. And so it's like, I kind of just realized, I was like, okay, you know, festivals are more likely to select short films just because they have hundreds of them.
I think it's like 7 minutes,
Yeah.
The golden number.
Is the golden number. And so they were like, I was like, I'm just going to make short films because if they get into festivals, then at least they're in festivals. I can go to the festivals, people can see it, and I can meet people. Whereas if I try and make a feature, the percentage of getting a feature into a festival is drastically lower than getting it into short films, especially with like the higher film festivals. So, like, after that film didn't get into anything, I did have a lot of creative fatigue, and that's where, like, you know, I was kind of like, damn, we did all that work for nothing. You know, I don't really know what I want to make again, and it kind of took me a while to get out of that, and I had some short film ideas here and there, and I just had to, like, sit myself down and just go, all right, we just got to make the next one. Because, like, even though on paper someone could view that feature as, like, a failure because it didn't make any money back, it didn't get any festivals, we had a premiere and people showed up, but technically it would be viewed as a failure. But to me, I had to realize that is the best film I've ever done because of the writing, the work that was put into it, the people I worked with, you know, the endeavor that is the success. So then once I realized that, I was like, all right, let's get back to work. Let's make these short films. And then that's when I, you know, had to like mentally trick myself into getting over that block to just do it. And like I said, not really choosing who I really worked with people are like, we can't do that. And like I get it. There are people that are like, you need to be realistic about your goals. But then there are people that are just, for some reason, just negative about the whole process. And they're like, no, we can't do that. Like, that's too big. Like, we're shooting too big. And it's like, my mindset is that
like, why not? Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Like, you have to do that. And like, I work with a guy at my work who makes his own music. And me and him always are like on the same boat about like the creative process, creative fatigue, like getting known, getting, you know, discovered, like getting discovered. Yeah. And we always had these conversations. And I realized last year I came to him and I was like, I kind of had this new mindset of like being delusional, but like being delusional, like with yourself, because you can be delusional to a point where you seem like an ass and you're like, I'm the best that there is. No one's better than me. But like, you have to control that aspect of it, but you have to be delusional with yourself of like, if no one, for example, if you have nobody that's like, you can do that, you need to be the person that's telling you that.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, my favorite show, like connecting that, my favorite show of all time, TV show, is Lost. I don't know if you've ever seen Lost.
I know of it.
Yeah. So there's a character in that in that TV show, who his motto is like, don't tell me what I can't do. And I feel like I've
top of the eye.
Yeah, I feel like I've really, like, we're Han Solo. Like, I feel like I've really taken that to heart of like, why not? Like, why would we not try to do that?
I mean, that's what they call trailblazers.
Yeah, and if it just doesn't work, then we try.
At least we tried.
Yeah, I would rather try to do it than just tell myself we can't do it, and then we just don't do it.
Going back to that, I think something that I heard from a filmmaking friend, and this is what I discovered why philosophy is so important with filmmaking. He said, this one dude, I know, again, no shame to this guy, but he said, I don't like the word compromise because it means that you failed to complete your vision. And I'm like, dude, compromise is like film's middle name.
It is 100%. Yeah.
It's like, at least for me, I'm like, dude, like, again, like you're going to attempt to make something on fire, and I hope you succeed with that. And I think you're going to learn, you know, how you were able to do that and how you were able to compromise, you know, you're still your vision, you know what I mean, within that aspect.
And so kind of like me talking about you for a second, I had followed Eschaton. Am I saying that right? Eschaton? Eschaton. I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
Needs a brand.
I had been following that film since its conception. I saw that Anthony was writing it. and I didn't know what it was. I just like saw people working on it, whatever. And then I see behind the scenes that he posts like with notes on it, or it might have been you. I just remember seeing it, and it said zombie on it. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, this is a zombie film? I was like, I love it even more now. And I was following that film, and then I see you guys post the explosion.
Yeah.
And I remember like my jaw just like was on the floor because I was like, I follow these guys on Instagram. I was like, I've worked with some of these people before. They know who I am. I know who they are. And they have made this film where they just blew shit up in the desert and posted it, and they're doing it. And I was like, I feel like seeing that helped me because I'm like, they're doing that. Let's let this shit on fire.
So, closing notes and where people can find you, and advice to the people that want to get into filmmaking.
Yeah, so honestly, if you want to get into filmmaking, like I believe like nowadays is the easiest way to do it. Like everybody's got a phone, you know, they're shooting high quality films on phones. Like you hear directors all the time, they literally say, I started shooting this on a phone or like on my dad's film camera or something like that. So it's like there are so many resources nowadays to do it. It's like you can use natural lighting. Like you don't even need lights or you don't need sound equipment. You know, it's just, and I feel like you need to understand too, and I feel like a lot of people worry about this, is like they are like, I don't want to make a bad first film. It's like your first film's gonna be bad. Like my zombie film called The Dead Among Us is bad. It's real bad. So it's like you just need to get past that of perfectionism and like, you know, worrying that it's just not gonna be good because it's just not, you know, it's like, it's everybody's film. And I'm not just like saying that like to be mean or like to put shit on people, but it's like everybody's first film is just not good. And everyone is always getting better. So it's like, just make the film, just shoot one scene, shoot one shot, you know, vlog. Like even vlogging is a good way to like start like getting in front of the camera and like, you know, filming yourself and trying to come up with creative angles and things like that. Or like film a trip that you go on to like get better at like cinematography and stuff. It's like, you have a device in your pocket probably at all times, and everybody has one now that has the capability to capture that. And so it's like, I believe there's just no excuse. If you want to get into filmmaking, you should just be doing it. And it's like, you don't even have to write a script, just ad-lib it, just ad-lib a conversation with you and your friend. Like, ask your friends to be in it, ask your parents to be in it. And again, like I said this in a video that I did, is like, write for what you have. If you have like a mom or a dad that own a restaurant or a business, ask to shoot at their business when it's closed. You know, shoot at a park because it's free. Shoot in a car. Shoot on your sidewalk in your room. Like, you have the capability to do it. And if you try and write for what you know, I believe that'll help you try and come up with an idea, because a lot of people are like, oh, I just don't know what to film. I don't know what to do. Just, you know, pick something. A location is a really good way to start. Pick a location, come up with a story for that location. That's where you start. And once you do it, you're going to love it. You're going to want to keep doing it. You're going to see, you know, if you show people, you show your parents like, hey, what I made, they're obviously going to hype you up and be like, oh, it's really good and stuff. And that'll help flow, you know, help feed you to want to do more. And be delusional, literally, like be delusional. But like, don't be delusional in a way that it's like you're a jackass. Like, be delusional in a way that you convince yourself that you are good enough for these high level things. But then don't be disappointed when you don't get what you're being delusional about. It's a very like give and take. Like, you need to believe that like you're able to do things. I almost said set that house on fire, but that might be a bad precedent to set. Get that shot that you want to get. If you want an underwater shot, just do it. Don't let anybody tell you we can't do it. Certain phones are waterproof. You can borrow a GoPro. You know, there are ways that you could buy a fish tank, fill it with water, and shoot through the fish tank to act like you're in water. Like, there are so many ways that you can do something. Don't ever, ever let anybody tell you that you cannot do something, because either they're not willing to try it themselves, or for some reason they just don't want you to succeed. And so that is like the delusional part. Like, if they're telling you you can't do this, if you can't get that shot of the house on fire, you need to tell yourself that you can. And why not try to do it? And why not try and take the risk of doing it? And if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. It's so much better to like take the risk of doing it than not doing it at all. And I know people say that all the time, but it is so true. And like, going back to philosophy, that is probably the biggest philosophy for me in filmmaking, is like, just try and do it. Like, and if it just doesn't work, just move on and just try it again, or try it in different ways and like work around, or like compromise. It's like, if you can't get this underwater shot, do it them getting out of the water. Like, there's a million different ways that you can do things, and there's just no excuse for not doing filmmaking now because you have so many resources to be able to do it. And once you start doing it, you're going to love it. So just do it. Just start doing it.
And where can people find you?
Instagram, YouTube, Canyon Dimire, first name, last name. Again, if TikTok's still around, Canyon Dimire, first name, last name. And yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much, Ken.
Thanks, man.